Welcome back to our channel. It's been a long time since I've been with you guys, but I'm so excited. I'm now officially in our office here, and I absolutely love it. I am Megan, if you're new here, and this is going to be one of our more instructional type videos where we talk about ways that you can help your blended family marriage. Because like we always say, marriage is hard, but blended family marriages are harder. One of the things that make blended family marriages harder is that we have to co-parent with people. We have to co-parent with people that we maybe don't agree with, that we maybe stepped out of a relationship with because of the things that we disagreed with that person about. But today I'm going to talk about something that is such a hot topic, and it's really become this buzzword around the co-parenting relationships. And we're going to talk about narcissism and how to better co-parent with somebody that shows some narcissistic personality traits. So stay tuned, you guys don't want to miss a thing. So for the very best advice for your blended family marriage, make sure that you ring the bell down below so that way you don't miss a single episode. I put out these videos where we give advice and we kind of talk. I do that once a week on Thursdays, and you don't want to miss that. I also do a vlog type video of Dwayne and I behind the scenes on Saturdays. Those come out on Saturdays. And on Mondays we do encouraging marriage interviews where you can just be encouraged and built up by different people's journeys and stories and how their marriage became so successful. So again, you don't want to miss a single episode. Ring the bell, like this video if you like this video, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for tuning in. So like I said, narcissism has become this big buzzword amongst the co-parenting population. Oftentimes we'll accuse our exes of being narcissistic. We'll say, how do you co-parent with a narcissistic ex? How do you co-parent with a narcissistic co-parent? And you hear that all the time. The truth is that a lot of people will display narcissistic tendencies without even realizing that they do. So be careful when you say that, because you might be displaying some of those tendencies as well. So let's cover that. What is narcissism? What does it look like? What does it feel like? How does it act? Some of the traits of a narcissistic person or of a narcissism disorder itself. Number one is an exaggerated sense of self-importance. So you might be dealing with somebody that feels like their life is so much more important than whatever it is that you have going on. Everything about them is very elevated and almost feels very arrogant and cocky and selfish. Narcissism really is just a step more severe than selfishness. Another one is an excessive need for admiration. They need to feel that built up. They need to be put on a pedestal in other people's eyes and other people's ideas, so that way they can feel better about themselves, and nothing will take away from their security, which it's kind of a catch-22, because really narcissists they feel very insecure, so they need to be built up and put on a pedestal and raised up all the time, so that way they feel more secure in themselves. Another thing is narcissistic personalities have a really hard time building very deep, intimate relationships. So all of their relationships are very superficial level. What's in it for me is often how they feel about their relationships. Do I want to be friends with this person? How will it benefit me? And they never think about how can I benefit that person, or how can we connect emotionally? It's all just very superficial. They're not able to go deep into a very strong relationship. Another one is a lack of empathy. There's a difference between sympathy and empathy. An empathetic person doesn't necessarily sit with you in your sorrow or your sadness. They more or less confirm that yes, you're sad, and yes, it hurts, and I'm sorry that it hurts. I'm sorry that you're having to experience this. And that's not something that a narcissistic person would ever have, is that sense of empathy. Again, this goes back to the relationships. They often have a difficult with attachment and dependency. So they won't ever become dependent on somebody else. If what they're doing now is dependent on how somebody else reacts or what somebody else does, they will pull away from that or draw away from that. They don't want to ever have an attachment or a dependency to somebody. They have a hard time making commitments or sticking to a commitment, because that is an attachment or a dependency. Chronic feelings of emptiness and boredom, and this is getting more into how they feel, what their emotions are. They absolutely are bored all the time because they don't have those deep, intimate connections with people, and they are empty because, again, they don't understand what it is to have an empathetic or have a deep, intimate relationship with somebody. And here's one that I believe that makes co-parenting with narcissists extra hard. They have a vulnerability to life transitions. Narcissistic behaviors are the ones that will really struggle with what's the word I'm looking for? Midlife crises. That's something that they really go through because they really have a vulnerability when life transitions happen. So those are the characteristics, those are the traits of a narcissistic personality disorder. I have a hard time saying that somebody is narcissistic. I think that sometimes people will display those traits, sometimes people will act that way, but that's a serious diagnosis. That's a serious disorder. That's kind of like saying, oh, that person is bipolar, or that person is schizophrenic. They are licensed, those are diagnoses that come from like a licensed doctor. Those are diagnoses that seriously speak of a mental disorder, that this is seriously something that's going on. However, I do think it's important to acknowledge that people can show even bipolar tendencies. They might have really high highs and really low lows, but that doesn't make them necessarily diagnosed with a bipolar disorder. Or they might have some schizophrenia issues where they kind of feel like they might have two different personalities, or they might feel like they're one way in one situation and another way in another situation, but that doesn't make them diagnosable schizophrenic. A lot of times, anxiety disorders will come out with people, and that'll be borderline schizophrenic, and they'll show those personality traits, but they're not true. And it's the same, it's not a true diagnosis. And it's the same thing with narcissism. Other things can draw out a narcissistic personality. Things like wounds and hurts and really having your feelings hurt can make somebody display some narcissistic tendencies, but I'd be careful calling somebody narcissistic, because to me that just takes away from the actual diagnosis, the actual personality disorder that people have. Because to be truthful, I think we've all been selfish at times, and that might even be borderline narcissistic, because we are really only thinking about ourselves. How does this relationship benefit me? I can't really handle this life transition right now. And those are definitely signs of narcissism, but it's not a diagnosable thing of narcissistic personality disorder. So I would be very careful with that. I think that a lot of times people jump on that bandwagon that, yes, my co-parent is narcissistic, but I think that that's a dangerous road to toe. Okay, so we covered what it looks like. What does it feel like? How do people that have narcissistic tendencies, what makes them tick? What makes them think? How do they behave? And now how do we co-parent with them? How can we make the co-parenting relationship with these people that display these personalities a little bit more smoother? And I'm going to give you 3 practical tips that you can incorporate today into your co-parenting relationship. And you might be thinking, Megan, you're supposed to be talking about our marriage. The thing is that co-parenting affects your marriage, whether you'll admit it or not. It always does. So it's important to remember that you can only control what you can control, and you can control what happens in your 4 walls. You can't control what happens in the other parent's house. So always remember that. Always remember that you can only control what happens in your 4 walls. And really, even a lot of that is out of your control. But trying to spend all of your time, energy, and effort worrying about what happens in other people's homes is ridiculous. But you can do some things to make it easier to co-parent with somebody that shows some narcissistic personality traits. The first one is to keep everything in writing. It is so important to keep everything in written communication. Somebody that displays some narcissistic tendencies is going to try to turn it back on you. They're going to deny that they ever said something. If something goes wrong and it's because of a decision that they made, they're going to deny ever having made that decision and try to blame you. But if you have it in writing, if you have it in email form, in text form, there's really no denying that. And you can always say, no, look, this was the communication here. So it kind of takes that power away from somebody that has some narcissistic tendencies to want to blame, shift, and push everything off and not take accountability for anything, because that might make them look bad. So I know that there's really good co-parenting apps out there where everything needs to happen through the app. And oftentimes I have seen that in court orders where that is court ordered. You guys are not allowed to communicate except through an app. And if you need to change your custody orders in order to maintain that written form of communication, this is worth it, because it'll make co-parenting with this person a whole lot easier. Or if you only communicate via text or email or anything like that, really honestly keep it to the point and keep it always in written communication. This second tip, I don't really know how to intro this. So you like to see things coming at you, right? You like to know what to expect when things are happening. If there's traffic coming up ahead, you like to know ahead of time so that way you can know what lane to be in, where to go. And so this is really just a way to know and prepare yourself for what might be coming. Remember when we talked about narcissistic personality traits? One of the things that narcissists don't like is transition. Because honestly, a lot of people don't like transition. A lot of people don't like change. And what that does is it makes things a little bit uneven, a little bit unsteady. And you feel like you can't really you can't really find your balance. It takes a minute to kind of find your balance again when things are in transition or are moving along in a way that you are not used to them moving along. And narcissists have a lot harder time trying to balance with change and transition. So brace yourself. The thing about blended families is there's always change and there's always transition. And really you're either changing or you're working towards the next change while you're co-parenting, really while you're living life. And that's really hard for people with narcissistic personalities because it takes away control, it takes away power, and they don't like being in that position. And usually then what that will do is it'll pull out other negative behaviors that are triggered because of the uncertainty. So just know, okay, this is changing. Maybe it's a new school. Maybe it's a new custody schedule. Maybe it's something else that's going to cause some big changes in the life of the parents as well as the children. Just know that during that time, you're going to see some exaggerated behaviors for somebody that shows some narcissistic personalities. They're going to really dig deep into those negative behaviors because they want the control back. They want to feel the control back. So that's the second tip that I have. Just be aware that it's coming. There's nothing really that you can do to change it. Change is going to happen. You just have to manage it on your end. You have to be able to control what you can control in your house, and then just let them throw their fit. Let them do what they want. Keep everything in writing so that way there's nothing that they can come back at you and blame you for, or that they can really just twist your words or twist the way that you say it because it's all in writing and everything that you've said is documented. So that's the second one. There's really nothing you can do to prepare for it. Just know that it's coming. And finally, and probably the most hardest one, in how to co-parent with a narcissistic personality, especially somebody that kind of displays the traits but really hasn't been diagnosed, or maybe a diagnosis really isn't even appropriate for that person. And this is going to be hard, and you're going to say, Megan, I don't want to. You need to extend that person grace. You need to understand where that's coming from. Honestly, if it's personality disorder and it's a diagnosable condition, that might be something that you need to seek some more permanent custody of your children and avoid the co-parenting relationship altogether unless it's supervised. But if it's somebody that just is kind of selfish, not even kind of, is very selfish and is displaying a bunch of narcissistic behaviors but not necessarily enough to require a diagnosis, if that's the situation, then truly you need to just extend grace. You need to understand where they're coming from. You need to be able to know that, okay, this is just their personality, and I need to pre-forgive. That's something that our pastor talks about often. I know it's coming. I know that this is how you are. Deal with it. Don't become a doormat, but at the same time, don't hold those grudges. Don't let the way that that person behaves or that person's behavior alter the way that you behave or alter your behavior. Don't go to their level. Don't hold a grudge to the point that it ruins the rest of your day, the rest of your week, or the rest of your month because of the behavior that you're seeing from somebody that displays behavior that really is kind of predictable. Extend grace there. Again, don't become a doormat. Make sure that you have put everything in writing and that you protect yourself in that way, so that way they can't twist your words. Always, always, always prepare for the worst kind of behaviors when there's change, and extend grace. So that's all I have for you today. I hope that you guys get something from this. If you do, let me know in the comments below. We do videos all the time on different things dealing with co-parents, on how to improve your blended family marriage. We do all kinds of different videos. So if you like this material, make sure that you check out some of the other ones. I'll put them in the end screen in just a minute that you guys can check out. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel because you don't want to miss a single one of these. So we will see you guys next week. Bye.